Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, Jose, Vida is there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so let's try to get going here. Sorry for the trouble.
Yeah, don't worry.
Okay, so once we have the understanding in reference to the field and our inability to control and to manipulate and get exactly what we want, when we want, and that's through our limited actions. So once we get this objective understanding, we develop this okayness, this dispassion, this positive indifference regarding the results of my actions. No? So while we may still perform actions for the sake of certain results, we do from the standpoint of freedom from anxiety, freedom from dependence, freedom from apprehension, okay? Excessive concern, so we are free. We are doing actions from a platform of accomplishment, of happiness and satisfaction rather than doing actions for the sake of gaining happiness or accomplishing certain things. So all of those emotional, psychological concerns, being released, so the actions are even more efficient. They are better action. They are more elevated in quality. Okay, this is all byproduct of dispassion. Karma Yoga, in other words, Karma Yoga is a great way to produce dispassion, this attitude derived from the understanding of the field. However, actions are important for preparing our mind for freedom. Okay? However, actions are never going to produce true happiness. They are never going to produce the accomplishment that we want. But actions, however, are very important in this process of preparing the mind, okay? Polishing the mind and purifying the mind for freedom, for self-inquiry. How so? Usually our mind is preoccupied with getting what it wants and avoiding what it does not want. In other words, we are always worried about the results that it will bring. This causes anxiety, mental disturbance. Anxiety is unsuitable for self-inquiry, okay? An agitated mind, an over-concerned, a preoccupied mind is not a mind fit for self-inquiry. Actions made with the spirit of the Karma Yoga are not done just for gaining the object of desire, but it's for gaining spiritual development, spiritual evolution. Okay, so the Karma Yoga is the one who acts for the good of the total, and its main goal is to gain purity of mind, refinement of mind, and then a secondary goal is, oh, and by the way, if I can gain the result, if I can accomplish that result with this action, which is not entirely up to me, even better. But my main purpose is to gain refinement of mind, purification of mind, spiritual development. This is the attitude of the Karma Yogi. So when we clearly comprehend that action cannot give what we truly want, and that the results of actions are not up to us, we perform actions from a different platform, the platform of self-knowledge, dispassion. This helps to produce the mind suitable for self-inquiry. Okay, so we went through discrimination, dispassion, and then the third D are the disciplines or the sixfold accomplishments. So what are these sixfold disciplines or accomplishments? The first one is called control of the mind. Okay? The mind control is not like controlling the mind of your wife, your husband, your neighbor. No, Control of the mind is to take control over one's mind, and it's simpler said than accomplished. Okay, how to control the mind? So if we try to control the mind by willpower alone, we fail because the mind is very, very, very strong with its own tendency. It's hardwired to think and feel in a certain way, responding to circumstances of life in a certain way. So we want to control the mind, and we usually we go for Vipassana yoga, for meditation, and so on. So we want to control it by bringing it to, to discipline it to one point in the next. So we're going to focus the mind in one certain point, okay? And we are not going to let it go from one thought to another. We're not going to allow it to engage into other thoughts that comes again and again in my field of awareness. We are not going to feed into those thoughts. So this is a way to try to control the mind, okay, by willpower. But as we all know, willpower alone, it's weak. It has a certain purpose, okay, but it's weak because how long we can keep educating, disciplining, the mind? It's like trying to educate, to train a dog. So it requires tremendous effort. And the moment that you lose a little bit, you suspend your effort, so the dog or the monkey mind is going to move around. So we need more than just willpower to discipline and control the mind, okay? So we need knowledge as well. So control of the mind is done mostly by understanding the nature of the field, the nature of desire, and the relationship between the field and the desiring mind, more than just trying to suppress or control the mind by the means of samadhi yoga or by the means of Vipassana yoga. Okay, discrimination, which is the key to permanent freedom, requires constant contemplation. And this is not possible if the mind does not have focus, if the mind is extroverted, if the mind is dispersive, okay? So it's the mind is filled with negative emotions, with fears and desires and prejudice. So if the mind is stuffed with all of those different kinds of mental, emotional attitudes, this self-investigation, this self-inquiry becomes almost impossible. So therefore, we need to clear those vasanas. We need to clear. We need to diminish, to loosen up, to lighten up the load of this tendency of these vasanas. And we do this by the means of understanding, by discriminating, contemplating, understand the relationship between the mind, the field, the desires that appear, where they come from, how they emerge in my mind, and the results of me engaging those thoughts and so on. The whole dynamic, the more we understand it, the more control we have of the mind. So we use our willpower, but we need to understand and know the mechanics of the mind in relation to its field. We cannot just suppress or erase or negate these desires, fears, prejudice, and emotions, and samskaras, and all these tendencies, these vasanas. We have to examine all of this material in the light of the teachings of Vedanta. So when we examine them, and then we understand them, and then we have a very, very strong alliance between willpower and knowledge. This alliance between willpower and knowledge allows us to discipline the mind, to control the mind. So the knowledge of Nitya is Ishwara's knowledge. So understanding, Ishwara knowledge, Dharma, Karma, and the way we respond, the way we should behave, following the natural laws of the field, the Dharmic laws, and so on. So all this knowledge, Satya and Nitya knowledge, helps us to discipline the mind. This, the knowledge of Nitya Ishvara knowledge, and as well the knowledge of Satya, the teachings of Vedanta that asserts that we are the non-dual, limitless, whole and complete consciousness. This statement regarding the nature of our own non-dual nature will be explained in detail later in the text, but for now, we need to take it pending the result of our investigation and consider its implications, the implications of this statement, which is the base of Vedanta, the fundamental of Vedanta, a statement of Vedanta, declaration of Vedanta. The nature of reality is non-duality, and the nature of reality is the nature of the only self there is, and the Jiva-Atma is equal to Paramatma, that Vamasi. So we are the self, and we are of the nature of one without a second. Only light there is, the light of consciousness pervading everything, all over the place. That's what is our most fundamental, essential, free nature. This consciousness we are is non-dual, and this is the most fundamental declaration of the Upanishads, which takes some time for us to understand, to integrate, to digest, to accept, to honor, and to live from that platform. So there are implications related to this statement, this Vedantic statement or declaration. The first implication is that as the non-dual self I am, there is nothing other than I. There is nothing other than the self. And I am unchanging, and I'm all-pervading. So there is nothing other than I, then there is nothing that I should fear. So why I'm going to fear if there is no duality in here? There is just one self, one I. So this also takes care of our fears. And fears are nothing but a negative sort of desire. Desires and fear. Desire is a positive energy, and fear is a negative energy, but it's a sort of negative desire. So this fear that we have, that something out there may hurt us, that fear is gone when you understand that everything is but the self. This is the implication number one, that we need to give it time so that it can be realized. There is no reason for fear. The second implication is that since the nature of the self is whole, full, and complete, it means that there is nothing really missing. There is nothing really lacking. Okay? Nothing can be added to me. Okay? Therefore, what is the need I have for desires? I have no need to desire things because I understood this declaration of the Upanishads which states that I am full, purna, whole, complete, nothing lacking, nothing missing. Okay? This is the second implication. The third implication of this Mahavakya, of the Upanishads, is that the bottom line of being non-dual, limitless, whole, complete, and unchanged is that we are full. We are always satisfied. We are always okay. Since that is the case, what is the reason for any of our negative attitudes? There is no reason to have any of those samskaras or any of those negative attitudes toward life, because we are fully okay, we are fully satisfied. We should never complain about anything. We should have any negative thoughts about the gift of life, the gift that is manifest opportunity as a human being. Okay? So those are just a few implications of that declaration of the Upanishads that is to be kept, suspended, with faith, with trust that Ishvara and the scripture is stating a fact, the truth, okay? And this phase is a phase pending the result of our own investigation. So the second accomplishment after the control of the mind is called the control of the sense. So as we know, the mind is hooked to the world of objects through its sense organs, its sense perceptions. So we have the 5 essential perceptive organs and then the 5 organs of actions. We perceive and we respond. We perceive and we respond. So we need to take care of our perceptive organs, because if we don't control them, they automatically
17 hours.
Mechanically, they connect their respective objects. They connect their respective object. And we have no control over that. Okay? Therefore, the control of the mind also implies the control of the sense organs. Okay, so we can control the sense organs and the mind by developing what we could call samadhi, samadhi yoga. Going to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what it does, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it erases, it eliminates, it erases all objects. So the duality subject and object is removed. Therefore, there are no sense objects, so that the sense organs, they go off. The entire aspect of our mind goes off. Okay, it's a kind of self-induced sleep. Okay, the mind is no longer present, and then there are no objects, and there are no sense organs to contact objects. But besides that, which is not really conducive to self-knowledge, it's conducive to self-purification, self-refinement. Okay. So that we can say, but self-knowledge, we need our mind alert, our mind alive, our mind on, and the sense organs have to be refined, and they have to be ready to connect with its respective objects. But we want to be the master of this sense organ. We don't want to be driven by these sense organs that runs all over the place. Okay, we want to be a master. So Shimayananda used to say something very nice: how to control the sense organs. The sense organs, they connect with the objects of the field. Okay, so they connect. And then if we don't want them to connect, how are we going to do it? It's impossible, because they are designed to connect to the objects of the field. Let me just, I'm going to see how I'm going to do this. Anatosh, can you mute yourself, please? Mute your audio, please.
I'm sorry.
On the left side. Got it? Okay. So Shimayananda once said that the whole practice of self-inquiry or development of spiritual development, so to say, is about disconnecting and connect. So our spiritual growth goes through the process of disconnecting and connecting. Why he says disconnecting and connecting? Because even if we would have the power to disconnect our sense organs from the objects of the field, they don't remain disconnected for long, because naturally they connect again. We need to have something to connect our sense organs to, okay? We have to disconnect from the objects which are irrelevant to our spiritual development, to our spiritual knowledge, to our self-knowledge, our self-inquiry, our growth, okay? And we need to connect to something meaningful. We have to connect it to some higher objects, okay? Objects of knowledge, of course, okay? We disconnect from the objects and we connect to an object of knowledge. What is the object of knowledge? Ishvara. So Ishvara, we disconnect from the world and we connect our sense organs to Ishvara. And how we disconnect from the world and connect to Ishvara? Ishvara is the world. Okay? So it's only through understanding eyes that can see Ishvara as the manifest universe. Only through this understanding, knowledge, we can disconnect from this driven, this automatic, this compulsive interest in objects, and we start, the objects appear, but we see Ishvara, and we don't have any obsession with object because it's all Ishvara. This is one level. In the sensorial level, we disconnect from the objects and we connect to Ishvara. Everything is Ishvara. This brings the mind under control. This brings the sense organs under control. So we disconnect and we connect, and all of that is an exercise, an intellectual exercise based on a deep understanding, a profound ability or eyes, the third eye, with the ability to see the Lord, to see, quote unquote, the Lord, Ishvara. Of course, another way to reconnect the senses is, rather than reconnect to Ishvara, you reconnect the sense to the self directly. So you disconnect from the world, you connect to the self. Is even more finer kind of object of knowledge. But since we know, we are all advanced students, we know that the self is not an object of experience. The self is not an object of knowledge. Okay? So how can we disconnect from the objects, our sense organ, and connect our sense organs with Ishvara, with the self, Ishvara 1, Ishvara 2. Now we're talking about Ishvara 1, Brahman, the self, awareness, pure consciousness. How we connect to that? Okay? We cannot disconnect from the world and connect to the self, because the self is always ever connect. The self is that principle that makes our mind alive and the body alive. Okay? So we are never disconnect. Again, we disconnect from the objects and we connect to the self as an intellectual knowledge understanding. Never disconnect from the self, that all there is consciousness. Now I'm applying the same principle on a finer level. I'm disconnecting from the world. I'm connecting to Ishvara as the manifest, as the Lord that appears. It's everything, all living creatures, all inert object, everything is the Lord. And now I'm connected to the substratum of the Lord, the substratum of Jiva, the substratum of Jagata. I'm connected to the self, the subject conscious principle, I am, we are. Yeah? So this is another way to disconnect the sense organs and the mind from objects and connect it to its source, to its fundamental nature. And that is only possible through a very, very fine, very, very subtle, but very, very profound and transforming knowledge, understanding. I am the self. I was never disconnected from my own source, the source of everything. As long as the mind's attention is connected to the objects of the world, the self-inquiry required for self-knowledge and moksha is very difficult. Okay? The sense need to be re-educated, retrained, disciplined, but of course, we are not talking about suppression or repression. Okay? We're talking about educating, knowledge, understanding, okay, and then realizing. We also need to reflect on the fact that happiness is not inherent in any object of the sense. So the senses are going to run to the objects to try to gain this happiness, but we understand clearly and firmly that happiness is not inherent in any object of the sense. Okay? Therefore, this understanding, if there is any object would give happiness to us, would give to everybody. We have covered that extensively. We have this understanding. There is nothing intrinsically to the object that could be called true happiness, true joy, true satisfaction. Therefore, this knowledge is going to help me to control my sense organs when it tends, it wants compulsively to run to its objects. No? It runs to gain something, it runs to accomplish something, but it also runs to avoid something. Okay? Running to gain, running to avoiding, the only common factor, the common denominator is running. And running produces mental disturbance, mental agitation. This is the gravitational pull of desires and fears that makes the mind unfit for self-inquiry and self-knowledge. Therefore, the sense organs need to be under control, because the mind in its extensions is the sense organs. Okay? The mind is a composition of the intellect, the ego, the mind, okay, the feeler, and the thoughts, the feeler, and the sense organs, and the organs of actions. This is all the mind. Actually, we have something else on top of that, which is the pranas, the vital or physiological. All of that is part of the mind. So the mind operates through these different functions, and through the sense organs, it contacts the world. It's designed for that. Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Can you turn on your camera, please?
Okay. I just don't have enough broadband to run it all the time.
Okay, and then let me ask somebody else to do that. If anybody else can do that, and Tosh just went. Oh, Jose, you can do that? Turn on your camera, please. Just enough one of you do that. It's just because I don't like to talk with a black screen, you know, and when some of you, or at least I feel I'm related to someone.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Okay. Okay, by contemplating this simple logic, that there is no joy inherently in any object, by contemplating simple logic, the sense will gradually be withdrawn from this compulsively pursuit of objects. It's going to free the mind and the sense organs to seek the true source of happiness by the means of self-inquiry, by the means of self-understanding, understanding one's own nature as that which is already accomplished, ever accomplished, that which is ever connected, which does not require the sense organs to connect with, okay? That which is the source of all accomplishment, all connected, and which is, in a way, to say what Shimananda used to say, the whole process in spirituality is disconnecting and connecting, disconnecting and connecting, disconnecting from the world and connecting to the self, to Ishvara 1, Ishvara 2, howsoever we want to go about that. Our limitless nature, Brahman, Ishvara 1. The third discipline or accomplishment is the observance of one's duty. In other words, we call it Dharma or Swadharma. The ability to consistently do what needs to be done rather than doing what I want to do. I do what is right, I do what is fair, I do what is just.